This is Chapter 14, Stress, Lifestyle, and Health. In this first section, we will explore what stress is, differentiate between stimulus-based and response-based definitions of stress, define stress as a process, differentiate between good stress and bad stress, describe the early contributions of Walter Cannon and Hans Sill to the stress research field, and understand the physiological basis of stress, and describe the general adaptation syndrome. So we start by asking what stress is. It's a process whereby an individual perceives and responds to events that one appraises as overwhelming or threatening to one's well-being. The key parts of this definition are perception and appraisal. So what we experience psychologically as stressful is what creates a stress reaction within us. A stressor then is an environmental event that may be judged as threatening or demanding, or a stimuli that initiates the stress process. Primary appraisal is our judgment about the degree of potential harm or threat to our well-being that a stressor might entail. And secondary appraisal is our judgment of the options that are available to us to cope with the stressor and their potential effectiveness. There is such thing as good stress. We refer to this as eustress, and it's a good form of stress that's low to moderate in intensity. It's associated with positive feelings as well as optimal health and performance. Distress is what we usually think of when we are thinking of stress, and so this is the bad form of stress that's usually high in intensity. It often leads to exhaustion, fatigue, feeling burned out, and it's associated with erosions in performance and health. So stress is something that impacts everyone, but it is particularly high in our culture based on the research. The field of health psychology, which we very briefly explored at the beginning of the semester, is a subfield of psychology that is devoted to studying the psychological influences on health, illness, and how people respond when they become ill. The fight or flight response, which we discussed in the biopsychology chapter, is actually a physiological response to stress. As a reminder, it's a set of physiological reactions, including an increase in blood pressure, heart rate, respiration rate, and sweat, that occur when an individual encounters a perceived threat. These reactions are produced by activation of the sympathetic nervous system and the endocrine system. There's also Sill's general adaptation syndrome. The general adaptation syndrome is a three-stage model of the body's physiological reactions to stress and the process of stress adaptation. It includes alarm reaction, stage of resistance, and stage of exhaustion. The alarm reaction is the first stage of the general adaptation syndrome, and it characterizes the body's immediate physiological reaction to a threatening situation or some other emergency. It's analogous to the fight or flight response. In the stage of resistance, which is the second stage, the body adapts to a stressor for a period of time. And then in the third stage, the stage of exhaustion, the body's ability to resist stress becomes depleted, and this can result in illness, disease, and even death. We'll look now at the physiological basis of stress. The hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis is a set of structures that are found in both the limbic system, in the hypothalamus, and the endocrine system, the pituitary gland and adrenal glands. It regulates many of the body's physiological reactions to stress through the release of hormones. Cortisol is a stress hormone that's released by the adrenal glands when encountering a stressor. It helps to provide a boost of energy and prepares the body for action. In short bursts, it helps to improve our immune system and our functioning. When it remains in our system long-term, however, it can create short-term and long-term health problems for us. We'll look now at stressors. We'll describe different types of possible stressors, explain the importance of life changes as potential stressors, describe the social readjustment rating scale, and understand the concepts of job strain and job burnout. One type of stressors are those of traumatic events. Traumatic events include exposure to actual or threatening situations or injury, exposure to military combat, for example, threatened or actual physical assaults, terrorist attacks, natural disasters, for example, earthquakes, floods, and hurricanes, and automobile accidents. Life changes can also create stressors for us, and the social readjustment rating scale helps us to gauge how much stress we may potentially experience or how much potential we have for our health to be impacted by changes in our life. I'll post a copy of the student social readjustment rating scale in the course room so that you can take it for yourself. The scale is designed to measure stress, and it consists of 43 potentially stressful events, and each of them has a numerical value quantifying how much readjustment is associated with that event. Some of the categories include death of a close family member, personal injury or illness, and dismissal from work. Hassles are also a potential source of stress for us. Daily hassles are minor irritations and annoyances that are part of our everyday lives, but they're capable of producing stress for us. Some jobs are more stressful than others. These include police officer, social worker, emergency medical worker, air traffic controller, managerial work, firefighters, teachers, nurses, and clerical work. Job strain and job burnout are specific types of stress that are associated with workplace stress. Job strain is a work situation involving the combination of excessive job demands and workload with little decision-making latitude or job control. And job burnout is a general sense of emotional exhaustion and cynicism in relation to one's job. We'll look now at stress and illness. We'll explain the nature of psychophysiological disorders, describe the immune system and how stress impacts its functioning, describe how stress and emotional factors can lead to the development and exacerbation of cardiovascular disorders, asthma, and tension headaches. Psychophysiological disorders are physical disorders or diseases in which symptoms are brought about or worsened by stress and emotional factors. Some of these include cardiovascular health problems, gastrointestinal health problems, respiratory health problems, musculoskeletal problems, and skin problems. The immune system includes various structures, cells, and mechanisms that protect the body from foreign substances that can damage the body's tissues and organs. Immunosuppression is when the immune system is decreased in its effectiveness. Psychoneuroimmunology is a field that studies how psychological factors such as stress influence the immune system and immune functioning. And lymphocytes are white blood cells that circulate in the body's fluids and are especially important in the body's immune response. The general findings from the field of psychoneuroimmunology are that stress depresses the immune system. It makes it less effective. We'll look at cardiovascular disorders first. These are disorders that involve the heart and blood circulation system. The most common of these is heart disease. There are several types of adverse heart conditions within this, including those that involve the heart's arteries or valves, or those involving the inability of the heart to pump enough blood to meet the body's needs. It can include heart attack and stroke. And hypertension is high blood pressure. Research also shows that there are psychological and behavioral patterns that people can be characterized into that also affect the way that we experience and process stressors and how that actually affects our health as well. So the first is a type A. It's sometimes referred to as type A personality, and this is psychological and behavioral patterns exhibited by individuals who tend to be extremely competitive, impatient, rushed, and hostile towards others. A type B or type B personality is a psychological and behavioral pattern exhibited by a person who is relaxed and laid back. Negative affectivity is a tendency to experience distressed emotional states involving anger, contempt, disgust, guilt, fear, and nervousness, and these are much more common for type A individuals versus type B individuals. According to the transactional model of hostility for predicting social interactions, the thoughts and the feelings of a hostile person promote antagonistic behavior towards others. This in turn reinforces complementary reactions from others. This is the reciprocity that I was mentioning in the social psychology chapter, thereby intensifying one's hostile disposition and intensifying the cyclical nature of this relationship. We'll look now at depression, some interesting findings here as well. In one study, death rates from cardiovascular problems were substantially higher in depressed people. Depressed men were 50% more likely to have died from cardiovascular problems, and depressed women were 70% more likely. A statistical review of 10 longitudinal studies involving initially healthy individuals revealed that those with elevated depressive symptoms have on average a 64% greater risk of developing heart disease than those with fewer symptoms. And a study of over 63,000 registered nurses found that those with more depressed symptoms when the study began were 49% more likely to experience fatal heart disease over a 12-year period. There's also a connection with asthma. Asthma is a psychophysiological disorder in which the airways of the respiratory system become obstructed, leading to great difficulty expelling air from the lungs. People with asthma tend to report and display a high level of negative emotions such as anxiety, and asthma attacks have been linked to periods of high emotionality. Tension headaches are an intense form of a regular headache. A headache is just a continuous pain anywhere in the head and neck region. But a migraine headache is a type of headache that's thought to be caused by blood vessel swelling and increased blood flow. And stress does have an impact on it based on research. Look now at regulation of stress. In this section, we'll define coping and differentiate between problem-focused and emotion-focused coping. We'll describe the importance of perceived control in our reactions to stress, and we'll explain how social support is vital in health and longevity. Lazarus and Folkman distinguish two fundamental kinds of coping: problem-focused coping and emotion-focused coping. Problem-focused coping is when one attempts to manage or alter the problem that is causing one to experience stress. Emotion-focused coping is when one tries to reduce the negative emotions that are associated with the stress. Perceived control, it relates to your belief concerning your capacity to influence and shape the outcomes in your lives. And the research indicates that those who have a sense of control, this is similar to the locus of control discussed in previous chapters, that they are less likely to experience stress in such a detrimental way compared to those who do not feel like they have control. Learned helplessness was a concept identified by Seligman, Meyer, and Geer. And essentially what it means is that when we have experiences early on sometimes where we don't actually have control, sometimes we will continue to behave as though we don't have control over our circumstances, even when we later on do. Social support has been shown to be extremely important to the way that we experience stress, especially for us to have positive outcomes. Social support refers to soothing and often beneficial support of others. It can take different forms such as advice, guidance, encouragement, acceptance, emotional comfort, and tangible assistance. Individuals with low levels of support are at a greater risk of mortality, especially cardiovascular disorders. And individuals with high levels of social support are less likely to contract a common cold. There are many different techniques to reduce stress. I'll teach one in class, and I've taught several meditation techniques throughout the semester. Exercise is one, so physically fit people are more resistant to disease, and they metabolize and experience stressors differently. The relaxation response technique involves combining elements of relaxation and meditation. And biofeedback is a stress reduction technique using electronic equipment to measure a person's involuntary activity and provide feedback to help the person gain a level of voluntary control over these processes. We'll look now at the pursuit of happiness. We'll define and discuss happiness, including its determinants, describe the field of positive psychology and identify the kinds of problems it addresses, explain the meaning of positive affect and discuss its importance in health outcomes, and describe the concept of flow and its relationship to happiness and fulfillment. So happiness is defined as an enduring state of mind consisting of joy, contentment, and other positive emotions. It's the sense that one's life has meaning and value. A pleasant life is realized through the attainment of day-to-day pleasures that add fun, joy, and excitement to our lives. The good life is achieved through identifying our unique skills and abilities and engaging these talents to enrich our lives. The meaningful life involves a deep sense of fulfillment that comes from using our talents in the service of the greater good. And I'll place some resources in the folder for this chapter so that you can see more about happiness and more techniques to increase your own happiness. Some of the factors that are connected to happiness include age. Life satisfaction is usually increasing as we get older. Marriage. Married people are happier than those who are single, divorced, or widowed. Money. Well-being does rise with annual income, but only to about $75,000 a year. Happier people are more likely to finish college and secure more meaningful and engaging jobs. The relationship between religiosity and happiness depends on societal circumstances. So religion can contribute to our happiness, but it depends on the culture that we're in and the society that we're in. And people who possess characteristics that are highly valued in their culture are happier. Looking at the connection between life events and happiness, people are often poor at effective forecasting, and effective forecasting just means our ability to predict the intensity and the duration of our emotions in the future. Over time, we tend to have a type of sensory adaptation when it comes to emotions. So what this means is when we experience something that is novel, is new and exciting for us, and something that will change our lives, we do initially have this surge of excitement and happiness. But over time, that goes down, it diminishes, and it doesn't maintain our happiness in the same way that other enduring factors that I previously mentioned do. The field of positive psychology is a scientific area of study seeking to identify and promote those qualities that lead to happy, fulfilled, and contented lives. It includes looking at concepts such as positive affect, optimism, and flow. Positive affect is a state or a trait that involves pleasurable engagement with the environment, the dimensions of which include happiness, joy, enthusiasm, alertness, and excitement. Optimism is a tendency toward a positive outlook and positive expectations, and flow is a particular experience that is so engaging and engrossing that it becomes worth doing for its own sake. Having these things, a positive affect, optimism, and being able to have activities that allow us to enter flow, are all related with increased happiness.